Hello, this is Alphonse and welcome to today's lesson. Today's lesson is in sitting, a lesson about sitting, a lesson in sitting. Lean with your elbows on your knees. I hope that works for you. Be attentive of your lower back. So if this is already quite a stretch, you might want to put a pillow, just for example, put a pillow in between your knees and your elbows. So our starting position is leaning on the knees, fairly casual. And the first movement, so we need a movement. The first movement is to sink the spine in between the shoulder blades. If you have been with me for quite a while, a familiar movement, which means you bring your chest bone closer to the floor, which means your shoulder blades come closer to each other, so that's something we can feel and become aware of. The inside edges of the shoulder blade, or the shape of the shoulders in general, how they move towards each other when you sink your spine towards the floor. So it's not a sinking of the head so much as it is a sinking of the spine, a first movement. So how much of this movement is available at the beginning of this lesson? Let's try a second movement. We move forward swiftly to lower and to lift your head. So lower your head as if you would take a rest. A popular napping position it was in the 70s and 80s, even in meditation classes, to let your head hang in between your shoulders. And then to lift your eyes and your nose towards the ceiling and see, that's like a flexion extension, almost like a cat camel. Is it cow camel? Cow? Something like this, to extend the back and to round the back, or to lift the head and lower the head. Already that's a lesson in itself, quite a revelation. It's not just a movement in the upper neck to burden the neck, but a movement that can be initiated from your pelvis. Can you feel that movement of lifting your head and lowering your head? So two movements: lifting the spine, lowering the spine, lifting the head, lowering the head. Two different movements. How can we improve them as a first step in this lesson? So maybe take a short break after these two movements. Of course, repeated movements, and then again into our starting position with the elbows leaning on your knees. So that's interesting by itself. Where do you have to place your feet to make this worthwhile, to have a good feeling of leaning, so that you're leaning of your elbows? And the leaning, what do you lean actually? Is it the upper body? What do you lean when you lean on your knees? And then bring your attention to your right elbow and let your right elbow slip a little bit from your right knee, and move your right hand towards the floor. It's like a little bird on a roof, and the bird jumps off the roof fearlessly, whoop, down into gravity, and let your right elbow slide down a little bit, or let your right hand come closer to the floor a little bit, and you might feel, what do you feel? How do you do this? Do you lean more on your left elbow? Do you move into a turning movement, side shifting? How do you perform this movement of letting your right elbow slip down a little bit, so your right hand can come closer or even touch the floor? Or try the left elbow, so the right elbow stays stable on your right knee and the left elbow slips down. I mean, this is already such a high level movement that you can switch from elbow to elbow, that you can now lean on your right elbow and let the left elbow slip deliberately It's nothing for toddlers. That's a movement for grown-ups who have a lot of movement experience already, a lot of differentiation in their brain, ability to control their body, to either let the left elbow slip or the right elbow slip. But you might feel, instead of feeling the movement, you might feel your restrictions, your limitations, and let's improve that right away with an auxiliary movement. So we introduce a movement that will improve this reaching downwards of the hand or the elbow. So please take your how to take a right hand. So with your right hand, place your right hand onto your forehead, like, oh my God, what am I doing here in this lesson? And keep your right hand, so that's nice to attach the palm of your right hand to your forehead and start to look up a little bit and look down a little bit. And notice your organization. So you're leaning with your left elbow on your left knee, and your right elbow doesn't just go up to the right. So focus a little bit on your right elbow and point your right elbow towards the floor or in between your feet, and then point your right elbow upwards towards the ceiling, and always keep your right palm on your forehead. So in order to move the elbow once towards the ceiling and once towards the floor, there has to be a lot of movement in your spine. So maybe you can touch also your right elbow to your right knee, or slide with your right elbow down your right lower leg or up your right inner thigh, or maybe you can slide with your right elbow around your knee and up on the outside of your right thigh, or down on the outside of your right lower leg, or up through the air to point your right elbow to the ceiling, or to the left or to the right. Where can you bring the tip of your right elbow? Where can the tip of your right elbow go? Maybe to your left knee, maybe in between your legs, a little bit down and up and around, maybe in circles. A wonderful exercise in itself to find where you can point your right elbow. And at the same time, of course, you're finding twists and extension and flexion and translation and all sorts of movements with your torso and your pelvis, and how you shift your weight just by pointing your right elbow at many different places. But this should not be a fitness exercise, so let's take a short break. Oh, this makes me feel more awake. Interesting exercise. Should check my blood oxygen levels. I think I'm more energized right now. How do you feel? What did this pointing of the elbow do to you? And we will continue swiftly to the left elbow. So please lean with both elbows on both knees, with the right on the right and the left on the left, and then place your left palm on your forehead. And then what to do? So you can rest, or you can start to point your left elbow, or to lift your left elbow towards the ceiling or to the floor, or take a break, or slide your left elbow and start to play with where can you point your left elbow to, or what can you do with your left elbow. Take a rest with your left elbow on somewhere. Just my latest invention. What movements are available to your left, to the pointing of your left elbow, when you keep your left hand on your forehead? And what do you do with your left elbow that you did not do with your right one? What's new? What did you discover? What are your discoveries? Your latest inventions? All right, and then take a short break and let's see, how do you feel? Maybe come to lean with your elbows again on your knees and see how you can sink your spine in between your shoulder blades, how this movement has improved, or the lifting of your head and the lowering of your head, how this has improved. And we will continue swiftly with the lesson in sitting. So feel your weight on your feet and then slip one hand down towards the floor. So maybe that became easier also. Or slip the other hand down to the floor. And see if you can touch the floor with your hands, and maybe you can walk forward so that your behind comes off the chair, sitting platform of the chair, and then return to sitting. Let's see if this works for your lower back, if you have already enough space in your lower back to perform this movement, to come onto your hands on the floor. And notice this is like a seesaw movement. When your head dives down, when your hands reach for the floor, your behind becomes lighter and lighter until your behind lifts off like a feather, like a birthday balloon, starts to float away from the birthday cake up into the sky. So when your head dives down and your hands come forwards and down, your behind lifts away, and then of course you can reverse this movement to gently, gently, gently. So don't let your behind fall on the seating platform like a bag of rice, but just like a feather very gently come to land. So that's a quality we want to bring to perfection in this lesson, to be able to feel this seesaw movement of lifting the behind and lowering the behind on the seating platform. Yes, and repeat this movement until you're fairly happy with this movement, until you feel like, I became pretty good at doing this. Yes, up and down. And the next stage of this movement is not to let your head dive down, but to keep your eyes on the horizon, to keep your head upright. So the next movement, the next step, you lean with your elbows on your knees, and the same movement like before. Maybe your shoulders come closer to the floor, but your head stays up until you can do this lifting of your behind, but instead of diving down forwards, you keep looking to the horizon and you push your pelvis forwards until, okay, now we are standing. Okay, so that's good. Very graceful way to float up to standing. Then the same way back, how to arrive on the seating platform. Maybe bend the knees, bring the pelvis backwards, but keep in mind this seesaw movement to float your behind down on the seating platform. That was easy. Now you're sitting again. So we want to bring this to perfection. This balancing movement. Think about all the things we did already with the hand, with the elbow is moving, so you reach forward until your behind floats up gently. So what are the tricks to make this happen easier? First of all, the position of your feet. So you might want to bring your feet closer beneath the seating platform. Yes, so when you bring your head forwards, and your arms forwards to lift your behind, counterweight, you might feel it's easier when your feet are closer underneath your pelvis. Or the other way around, you could position your feet far away forwards to see if this is any good when you try to come up. And you probably will notice the further far forwards you have your feet, the more difficult it will be to come up. So fairly easy when your feet are closer underneath your pelvis. Not too close, of course, because then you're not stable anymore. You might fall forwards. You might notice that when you do this movement, your knees come in front of your toes, so your pelvis shifts forwards on the seating platform. Your knees come forwards in front of your toes, and then the pelvis extends into standing and back down again. So I also had this in another movement. I called this the roundhouse squat. Yes, very interesting movement of pushing the knees forward and then the pelvis forward and then back again. So it's not a straight up, as we might think, from sitting to standing straight up, but it's quite an arrangement of things, isn't it? Quite a lot of things we can do with the spine. So the better the spine is organized, if the spine is flexible. So we had this movement with the elbows and the head and the palm on your forehead. So a flexible upper body, and the pelvis extends and folds, and there's a lot of movement in the body to counterbalance and balance to come up with, not only with style, but gracefully, easily. And I mean, what will your friends say when you float up to standing and float down to sitting? They will think, what did she do? Why is she suddenly so flexible and so well organized? So elegant in her ways to come up, to stand and to sit down. What did she do that I did not know yet? Okay, so we need to introduce a little bit a twist. So as a last movement to wrap up this lesson, let's introduce, let's do one auxiliary movement. So start to lean on with your elbows on your knees again, and lift your right hand forwards like you want to point out something, pointing. The pointing game we learned as babies and toddlers, to point somewhere. So point upwards at the sky. So what's this? This is the sky. And when you point upwards to the sky with your right hand, you will notice, do you lean on your left elbow or do you just point upwards? So let's make this a deliberate movement. When you point with your right finger upwards to the sky, lean at the same time, lean over to your left elbow. And let's make this into a pure movement instruction. So while you point upwards with your right hand, don't look up towards the sky, but look down towards your left pocket. Like when you had a trouser with a pocket, back pocket. So look towards your left back pocket. See if you can see your left back pocket while you point up. So now you're shifting your weight because of this, looking to the left back pocket. And then let's turn this around again. Look up to the sky while you point up to the sky. Or to the left back pocket. Huh? Okay, and then let's do this swiftly with the left hands. With the left hand, point towards the ceiling or the sky and look towards the sky while you point towards the sky. So how do you do it on this side? Do you already shift your weight onto your right buttocks? But let's do it deliberately. So look to your right back pocket with your nose and with your eyes while you point upwards towards the ceiling with your left hand and while you of course lean with your right elbow on your right thigh, somewhere, right knee, right thigh. Okay, so this was our pointing our pointing exercise. In this exercise, wow, there's so many little exercises in one lesson, isn't there? Whew. Okay, so turning. So let's pretend we're talking to somebody in the cheaper seats in the back, but we just turn a little towards them. It's not like a full turning. It's just like a excuse me, could you please close the door in the back or something like this? Not a complete turning, just a little bit of a turning. So when you turn a little bit, how do you do this? And then we do a full turning because we really have to say something. Excuse me, stand up, and you turn, do the full turn. How do you do this? So you bring your left hand behind you, you bring your right arm, you point with your right arm around, you bring your right knee forwards and the left knee. So where do you put the left foot? Maybe the left foot underneath the pelvis, the right foot more in front. How would you come up to turn? How would you stand up with a turn to the left? How do you use your arms to turn to the left? When do you turn your head, your eyes, your pelvis? What do you do with your legs to stand up, to turn to the left? And then back down to sit, to face forwards, like you would be properly seated, and then you turn to stand up, to look to the left. So now we don't come up straight forwards, but we come up to turn with a turn. Do we need a separate lesson for this? Is this movement too complex? Or can you figure out to turn the many ingredients we need to turn, to stand, to look to the left, or to turn, to stand, to look to the right? Or we can turn this into a sports lesson, to stand up to the left, to come to sit, and to stand up to the right, and come to sit, or to stand up, to turn to the left, and come back to sit, to stand up, to turn to the right. Whoops. And we just touch down a little bit in between with the behind on the seating platform. We practice this to perfection. In order to improve what? I leave this up to you. Please come back to sit. So these are my ideas, my exercises in this lesson, the mini exercises that are all connected to make up this lesson in sitting. And then when you sit, just feel how you sit, how you perceive your your pelvis in sitting, your legs in sitting, your chest and your head in sitting, the range of motion you seem to have in sitting, the availability of movements and the readiness to turn and to be part of your environment. So it's not a passive sitting, but now at the end of the lesson you have a feeling of active sitting. Even if you just sit still, you can feel the possibilities, the world of possibilities, to pick something on the floor, or to turn over your shoulder to talk to your friends in the back, or just to stand up quickly to catch something, catch a basketball, I don't know, or a baseball flying up towards you, or raise your arm because you know the answer to the question. A world of possibilities, possible through our marvelous organization, our marvelous bodies and minds, of course, of our caring. All right, so I hope this was inspiring to you, or even joyful, that there were things in this lesson you enjoyed, or maybe you enjoyed the overall effect of the lesson. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.